Rally, but this is a different kind of a thing. Today we're going to talk about one subject, and then we'll start going back to the other, because we sort of love that, don't we? But it's an important, they say it's the most important subject. I'm not sure it is, but they say it's the most important. Inflation is the most important, but that's part of economy.
All right, Donald Trump undermining what his campaign had hyped as a significant economic address. The former president was light on policy and heavy on personal attacks. We'll show you more of what he said straight ahead. Meanwhile, the economy is the top issue for President Biden, as it appears his administration is going to pull off the soft landing he predicted. Also ahead, we'll go through the, quote, normal things suburban women care about. That's according to Vice President nominee J.D. Vance, what he thinks is normal. And Republican Governor Greg Abbott of Texas is promising to keep busing migrants to northern cities, but there's one big problem with that plan. We will explain. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Thursday, August 15th. Along with Willie and me, we have the host of Way Too Early, White House bureau chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire. MSNBC contributor Mike Barnicle, co-host of MSNBC's The Weekend, former senior advisor and chief spokesperson to Vice President Kamala Harris, Simone Sanders Townsend, and U.S. special correspondent for BBC News, Katty Kay, is with us this morning. And big news on the economy this morning, Willie, and it appears Donald Trump is sort of struggling to cope with that news.
Yeah, this is the front page of the Wall Street Journal, screaming headline above the fold. Inflation hits lowest level since 2021. Donald Trump gave yesterday in Asheville, North Carolina. It was supposed to be an economic policy address. He said, I guess I have to talk about the economy, but don't worry, we'll get to the other good stuff in a little bit. So we'll play some of that. Also, if you're just tuning in, missed the end of Way Too Early, we got a tour of the Market Basket locations of Massachusetts, from Waltham to Tewksbury. That's what that was helpful. The economy, new data, as Mika mentioned, showed U.S. inflation has hit its lowest level in 3 years. Great news for Americans, for the economy. Could now set up the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates soon. President Biden yesterday touting his economic policies when asked about those new numbers.
Has the U.S. beat inflation, Mr. President?
Yes. I told you we're going to have a soft landing. We're going to have a soft landing. My policies are working. Start writing that way, okay?
Start writing that way, John. He's feeling a little loose these days, is he not?
Media critic, President Joe Biden. No, I mean, let's be clear. The president has had his misgivings with some of the press coverage. He's had his frustrations. But that's also a bit of a mic drop moment, because he's not wrong. He has said for a while, we're on track to have this soft landing.
Thank you.
And he and his administration have put together policies that they've kept telling American people, like, we'll get there, be patient. And a lot of economic indicators have been good for a while. Inflation was the stubborn one. It is now. We're getting good news there, too. And I think that this is a president who, Simone, is obviously engaged in the day-to-day policy and helping his vice president run, but also, let's be clear, has an eye on his legacy. He thinks this will be a big part of it.
Absolutely. I mean, that clip was that's a man on his way out. Okay, that's Joe Biden saying, "Look now, y'all gonna keep playing with me for these next 6 months. I'm gonna play with y'all." Look, I think when it comes to the economy, the inflation now cooling is not just happening on its own, right? Inflation is not just going down on its own. The Biden administration has been putting pressure on some of the companies, which, frankly, is what we're going to hear some of from Vice President Harris, is my understanding, in her economic speech that she plans to give on Friday. But what this administration has done when it comes to junk fees, right? And junk fees is not something I think everyone across the board understands, right? But there some of these little fees that are tacking on to American people, going at companies after that, talking about the fact that these companies have made record profits, yet the prices had not come down. And then we saw companies like Target lower a number of prices across the board. That just doesn't happen because companies feel good. Pressure has to be put on some of these corporate entities. And so the administration has taken a turn in the last couple of months to do just that, which I think, coupled with the other work that it has done, the administration has done on the economy and the policies, is why we are seeing the numbers we're seeing now. So it doesn't just happen. And I think that's what I'm hearing from Joe Biden. He's like, look now, give me the credit.
Yeah, and Mika, we've talked about this. The economy has been so strong except for inflation, and it's still nagging and it's still too high. But that was a good number yesterday. So when you listen to Donald Trump's speech last night, it was almost like something that had been written months or even years ago when he's talking not only about inflation, but about a hellhole of violent crime, when the violent crime numbers, of course, are down across the country, when migrants flooding across the border, well, those numbers are down too. He's got a speech that he's programmed, his greatest hits, that just don't measure up to the facts right now in the country.
Well, he was supposed to deliver an economic-focused speech yesterday in North Carolina, but just as you put, Willie, minutes after taking the stage, he questioned the significance of the economy in November's election, and again veered off several times to personal attacks on Vice President Kamala Harris. Take a look.
Now, this is a little bit different day because this isn't around. We're talking about a thing called the economy. They wanted to do a speech on the economy. A lot of people are very devastated by what's happened with inflation and all of the other things. So we're doing this as a intellectual speech. You're all intellectuals today. Today we're doing it, and we're doing it right now, and it's very important. They say it's the most important subject. I think crime is right there. I think the border is right there, personally. We have a lot of important subjects because our country has become a third world nation. We literally are a third world nation. We're a banana republic in so many ways, and we're not going to let that happen because we're starting a free fall. She went from being a totally disrespected person 6 weeks ago. Nobody thought she had a chance. Nobody, and I don't think she can possibly win. If she does, our country is finished. You want to know the truth. But she was totally disrespected. The most unpopular vice president in the history of our country. For nearly 4 years, Kamala has crackled as the American economy has burned. What happened to her laugh? I haven't heard that laugh in about a week. That's why they keep her off the stage. That's why she's disappeared. That's the laugh of a crazy person, I will tell you. If you haven't known her, it's a crazy. She's crazy. They told her, don't laugh, don't laugh. No, it's her. No, her laugh is career-threatening. They said don't laugh. She hasn't laughed. She doesn't laugh anymore. It's smart, but someday it's going to come out. That's the laugh of a person with some big problems. We're not going to let this incompetent socialist lunatic keep breaking our economy for 4 more years. It'll destroy our country. On Election Day, we're going to tell her that we've had enough, that we can't take it anymore, Kamala. You're doing a horrible job. You know why she hasn't done an interview? Because she's not smart. She's not intelligent. And we've gone through enough of that with this guy, Crooked Joe.
It's sort of overwhelming because, yeah.
I just feel the need to laugh, Mika.
Career-threatening laugh.
Simone, like, I do feel the need to laugh. And actually, Kamala's laugh, her on TikTok, she is killing it with the young people and all those things that people on the far right are putting out there as like, look how crazy young people love. And she's becoming an internet sensation for laughing, for saying things and then enjoying a joke or actually answering questions from young people that are funny. And it's just sort of interesting to watch all this turn on its head for Republicans who think it's going badly for her, but don't miss the part where it's going really well. Or when you do, you actually have to grasp and say that her crowds are created by AI. So, Katty, I tried to follow that. And this is the interesting thing about Donald Trump, and it's important for those preparing to debate him or interview him, because he goes on so many strange tangents that you can't keep up to a point, and then when he realizes he's not going anywhere, he just starts attacking someone personally. I think he was talking about the economy, and I think he said it was an important subject, but then he moved to the border and talked about, you know, this third world nation that we live in, the United States of America, and then said that the economy was in a free fall. And then at that point, when perhaps, I don't know, maybe he realized he didn't know what he was talking about, or maybe he just lost his train of thought. Then he goes into these attacks against Kamala Harris. But again, in the world of TikTok and in the world of campaign coverage, the very things he's talking about, a lot of people really love.
Yeah. Donald Trump doesn't really like giving policy speeches. He doesn't really like policy. He feels that kind of hems him in a bit, and it pins him down to ideas and things that he might have to deliver on. He tends to prefer the personal, which is why he goes on attack on the personal. I mean, I had lunch this week with somebody who's advising him, speaks to him every week, and said, look, every minute not spent speaking about the economy, immigration, and crime is minutes lost. Well, there you have a kind of hour-plus long speech, and about 10 minutes of it is economic policy, which is basically cutting taxes, and the rest of it is, like you say, Mika, kind of meanderings into the personal, because that's just where he feels more comfortable. When it comes to debating him, I think Donald Trump is one of the hardest people to debate. I think Kamala Harris is excited about the prospect of debating him, but he's not an easy person. Ask anyone who has debated him. He's not an easy person to debate because of all of this. And I think Democrats have to be careful not to underestimate how, yes, everything is moving in their direction. Yes, like you say, Kamala Harris is a massive TikTok phenomenon at the moment, but they have to make sure those young people actually turn out and vote. And historically, obviously, young people turn out and vote in lower numbers than older people. And, be careful about prepping for the debate, right? Because this is not going to be easy for them.
You know, Mike, as you listen to that speech and the tone that Donald Trump brings, the American carnage tone, reminded of the line that Governor Josh Shapiro uses, which I won't repeat here, but basically says, hey, man, stop S-talking America. We actually love this place. We know we're imperfect. We've got things to work on. The border could be better. The economy, inflation could be lower. But why do you hold this country in such low regard? And when you listen to that, you wonder, I know there's a core group that connects with, but most Americans are proud of this place we live in. We want to improve it every day. We got a ways to go to make it the place that it should be and can be. But the joy that we see at the vice president's rallies that uplifts these crowds versus what you see in that speech, the contrast is really stark, and it's a contrast that the Harris campaign likes to see.
Yeah, it's literally the campaign is yesterday versus tomorrow. I mean, we just saw yesterday, we saw a man standing there on the stage saying, we are literally a third world country. I don't know anyone who believes that we are literally a third world country. And the thing about the Trump campaign now that makes me wonder a lot about it is Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita running their campaign are extremely good at what they do, but they seem to have lost control of their candidate. Their candidate has a tired 20-year-old act. We just saw it. Yeah. He updates it with some figures from the past 2 or 3 years, but it's a tired old act. The election was stolen. We're a third world country. Crime is up. Immigrants are going to rape your daughter. All sorts of fear factors, and a lot of it with huge, ugly racial overtones, especially when it comes to the vice president. And you wonder, how long will it be before he really goes out of control? And I think what's going to happen is when that debate occurs and he's in the ring with the vice president of the United States, a woman, a very sophisticated, very intelligent woman, and she hammers him like a prosecutor and doesn't let him off the hook, he will go, well, I can't say it, but something will snap in him, and that'll be it.
And certainly there is that juxtaposition of cop versus con, prosecutor versus convicted felon. We should remember that's still a major issue here, too. And you mentioned Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita, campaign leadership team. For now, I mean, there is growing unhappiness from Trump. I know we're going to get to that in a moment with Hugo about his team. We should note in every presidential campaign Donald Trump has ever run, he has fired his campaign manager in the month of August. He's 3 for 3. This could be number 4. And this is, or 2 for 3, and this would be number 3. And I think that there is growing unhappiness. They have not been able to adjust to what the change atop the Democratic ticket. And we're going to see another news conference from Trump today for exactly that reason. He's upset with his staff. He feels like only he can turn this around. He's his best messenger. So that's why he's going in front.
And the problem is putting him out there. We just see all this again. He thinks it helps him, but I think most of his advisors disagree.